The streets of Sadr feel different now. The old chaos, still there. But the fresh paint, the widened roads, the new facades, they almost fool you into thinking it's changed. Almost. It's trying to look like the capital. Clean, modern, controlled. But underneath, it's still Sadr. And that contrast, it reminds me of something else trying to keep up with time. Something in my pocket. The Galaxy Note 8, an 8-year-old phone that still carries the same aura. Something rare among modern devices. So, I'm putting it to the test as my main device. No safety net, no backup, just me and this phone thrown into a full day. Will it hold up or will it give out before I even make it back home? Well, holding it now, I'm reminded why it once felt special. The curved glass back melts into the aluminum frame, making it surprisingly comfortable despite its boxy shape. It rests in the hand with perfect balance. Solid, yet effortless to hold. Premium then, premium now. Back in 2017, this was the phone. Samsung's first with an edge-to-edge infinity display. Not quite bezel-free but close. The curves, the symmetry, it was deliberate, refined. Holding it now, I see why it stood out. This wasn't just another slab of glass. It had character, a design that was beautiful. And even after all these years, it still looks elegant. On the metro, I kept staring at the screen, at the camera, back at the screen, zooming into photos, inspecting every detail. Something about this display still makes me pause. The colors, the sharpness, even locked at 60 Hz, it holds up. No weird shifts, no washed out tones, just a crisp, high-res panel that still feels immersive, even in 2025. Sure, it's dimmer than today's OLEDs, but in normal conditions, I found it to be more than enough. The moment you start scrolling or swiping, the difference hits, the resistance, the hesitation in every movement. It's like the phone is thinking, debating whether it actually wants to follow my command. And I can't tell, am I just spoiled by high refresh rates or was it always this slow? Either way, it's teaching me patience. Then there's the camera. Opening it feels like looking at the world through 2017's eyes. The old Samsung layout, the familiar icons, it just hits different. But more than that, it's the way the viewfinder feels, partly because of what I'm seeing through it, partly because of how it presents the scene. When I'm shooting subjects or zooming in, thanks to the telephoto camera, things stay sharp. The colors still got that natural, slightly punchy Samsung look. Against the sun, it struggles, sure. But in the right lighting, this thing still knows how to capture a moment. The dual camera setup, the main and telephoto, along with the many goodies in the camera app like Pro Mode and those classic Samsung features still surprises me. 8 years later, and somehow it's still pretty good. 8 years is a long time. And so were Samsung's stubborn software policies back then. This thing got stuck on Android 9. Yes, Android 9, even though the hardware was clearly capable of more. If you saw my experiment running One UI 7 on it, you know exactly what I mean. This phone could have gone further, but Samsung just moved on. Whatever. We're here to appreciate what's still great about it, not dwell on what could have been. That said, there's no way this thing feels snappy in 2025. Coming from a modern phone, the difference hits instantly. Every tap, every swipe, just a split second slower. Scrolling through social media, choppy. Opening apps, a tiny hesitation. It's not unusable, but it's noticeable. Maybe I'm just spoiled by fluid animations, but the drop is real. And these old school navigation buttons, they were fine back then, but now they make me feel like I'm 16 again. Honestly, the only real positive so far, it's making me appreciate my daily driver a whole lot more. And then there's the Exynos 8895, decent in its day, but now it's just holding on. Apps open fine, but put it side by side with a modern Samsung and the difference is obvious. Gaming? Playable, but you notice the missing frames, the lower graphics, and before long, the heat kicks in. It's not too much, but it's a reminder. The real problem though, the battery. It's bad, really bad. After 8 years, that's expected, but still, it hurts. You go from full charge to red bar way too fast. For all its age, the Note 8 still feels packed with features. Just look at the sensors up top. Face unlock? Check. Iris scanning? Also there. And on the back, a fingerprint sensor. Sure, it was awkwardly placed, but think about it. Two completely different sets of hardware for two separate unlocking methods. Samsung was generous with the Note 8 and Note 9 when it came to hardware. Now, it feels like the opposite. They've shifted focus to software support while slowly trimming down features, like removing Bluetooth from the S Pen on the S25 Ultra, which, funny enough, this 8-year-old Note 8 also doesn't have. Guess that's one way to bridge the gap. Again, I love how content looks on this display. No, it's not hitting peak brightness levels like modern flagships, and I wouldn't be watching Netflix under direct sunlight. But in normal conditions, it's totally fine. And then there are the little features, 3D touch on the home button, waking the screen with a press, always on display, even if it doubles battery drain. Small things, but they add up. The speakers? Just okay. No stereo, just a single bottom firing one, loud enough for casual use, but lacking that immersive depth you'd get from modern flagships. Nothing special, nothing terrible, just serviceable. And then the cameras. Again, I keep snapping shots of the city, and honestly, I'm surprised. The colors still pop, and there's this natural, almost nostalgic vibe to them. It doesn't feel overly processed, which some might actually prefer. Sure, against the sun, it struggles. HDR? Barely there. Highlights blow out, shadows lose detail. But in the right lighting, the main and telephoto sensors still hold their ground. Even zooming between the lenses feels smooth, and when you push it further, the results aren't as bad as you'd expect. It may not compete with today's AI-powered processing, but for an 8-year-old phone, it's holding up better than it has any right to. Video though, that's a different story. It's decent, but you feel what's missing. Stabilization isn't great, and there's just something about it that looks off. The weak HDR and shakiness make it obvious this is an older device. At night, photos are respectable, not great but passable. Bad exposure, crushed shadows, you notice them. But if you haven't been spoiled by a Pixel before, you'd still look at these shots and think, yeah, this is solid. Still, you get all those classic Samsung features. Super slow-mo, pro mode, the works. The front camera, same deal. Photos, good, not great. Video, serviceable. Charging is another thing. Just 15 watts. So yeah, I was waiting. Wireless charging is here though, so at least there's that. This whole experience, a mix of nostalgia and reality checks. But if you've got a Note 8 lying around, power it up. It'll remind you why this phone had so much love back in the day. And if you're wondering whether you can still use it in 2025, technically yes, but will you be happy? Between the battery and the outdated software, I doubt it. Now, I hope you liked this storytelling style of video. If you did, let me know. And with that, if you want to see how I got One UI 7 running on this thing, that video is right here. I'll see you in the next one.